One of the things I've learned from my friend Larry at Back to the Future Radios is good documentation. Now, I take a lot of photos and little videos where I tell myself what I'm doing or where the way something's hooked up or what I found. And I'm certainly not an artist, but like when I did the IFs and the oscillators, I drew it all up the way it was all connected and marked everything out. Same with the OS oscillator, right? That was the second IF, that's the oscillator. There's the first IF. I usually do it for switches. There's an antenna coil where I took the readings on it. So you can't have too much documentation. Okay, so I've got you on tripod. I'm not sure how this is going to work out. I've never done tripod from the top of my workbench before like this. So I apologize if it turns out lousy. I might not even post this. If it turns out okay, I may. So we're going to work on this antenna coil first. And the plan is that I'm going to cut an insulator out of a piece of lamination. From what I've found, this is basically a lamination pouch that I've run through my laminator. So it's two thicknesses of that. It's about 3 mil. And what I found is for these coils, it actually makes a pretty good insulator, and it conforms well. It sticks down well. So I'm going to cut a piece out of this, and we'll use it to go around that coil as soon as I find my scissors that I don't see laying here right at the moment. And I swore I just had them. That's like me. That's one of the reasons I try not to do live videos, because I lose my tools and everything else. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. Hopefully I'm going to cut this out. Let's see. Really? Alright, I'm back. I found them. I believe that this is where I cut one out for a coil last week. And I think that's the length I need. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this. Now, because it was only 4 windings, I don't need it to be super wide. The one that I did last week had 96 windings on it, and that was the width, right? So this is the width I'm going to use. Obviously the windings won't cover the whole width, but this is about the width of the tape. I'm going to use 2-sided tape to hold this onto the coil. So that's what we got. I want to cut a little notch in this. So let's get a X-Acto knife here. And the purpose of this notch is going to be to have something to wrap the wire around where it exits out and goes into the antenna coil. One of the things I have here is I like to mount stuff on my bench so I know exactly where it's at so I don't lose it. Unfortunately, in doing so, I've limited my space availability on this side of my bench. I'm planning on getting an expansion on my basement so that I can have room for a couple more benches, so I can have specific areas that I can work in. So maybe in a couple weeks I'll get that done. So right now I just cut this notch on here. I got a little bit of beeswax on that. You can see the little notch that I cut in there. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully I'm holding the right spot. I can use this to wrap the wire. Now the other piece, I'm going to cut another notch next to it, and you'll see why in a little bit, why I'm going to do that. So let's get our little notch here. I usually work under a magnifier, but obviously I can't work under the magnifier and show you guys what I'm doing too. So it's not the straightest, but I think it's going to work for what I need it for. Okay, so now I also know that, well, let's try it. You know what? Let's make sure I'm right before I go all this work putting the notches and stuff in here. Just kind of wrap it around here. That's the way it's going to go. And looky there, it's about perfect. So that'll work fine. But now let's see. I've got to come up. These are my two terminals. So the wire is going to start and it's going to come around here and it's going to go up there. It's going to wrap counterclockwise this way, and then it's got to wind up in a hole down here, right here. I think that's one of the holes I'm going to use. So what I want to do is have another notch that I can wrap that wire around right there. So I'm trying to figure out about where I want that to be. If the hole's right there, I want the notch about right here. So let's go ahead and make a little notch right here. Let me get that done. I hope I went the right direction with that. We'll go ahead and take those out of there. And there, so that leaves us our notch there. Okay. Next thing I want to do is go ahead and put a piece of, this is double-sided tape, around it long enough. Hopefully that's long enough. So we're going to put a piece of double-sided tape to hold our insulator. Like that. Okay. So now we'll take the insulator, make sure I start it about where I want it. And I think that's probably pretty good right there. That's pretty close. Try and get it as straight a wrap as possible so we don't go downhill with it. And there we go. So that's on there now. Kind of rub it in. And I'm not centered under my camera, so I apologize for that. Let me try and get more centered under the camera here for you. So you can see what I'm doing. And we have that now. So now that's our surface to wrap our wire on. Okay. Now, because this is only going to use 4 wraps, I really don't need the wide amount of tape on there again. However, for me to cut the 2-sided tape would be very difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on there anyway. It may cause me a little bit of a headache right here, so maybe I might try and cut a notch on it right there. Not sure how that's going to work. But as you can see, this one's done, it's done grabbed it a little bit right here. So I'll have to pull that up a little bit. Let's get a little of that tape and stick on here. Maybe I'll even see if I can trim it some. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe I can cut the tape in half. Let's see if I can do that. I don't know if I can or not. Maybe if I do it a little bit at a time here, I can get it cut in half. I don't know. You'll see how I do, just as I see what I do. Now it's letting me cut it a little bit, so let's try that again. Maybe I get lucky. Or maybe I don't get lucky and it just sticks back to itself or something. We'll see. We shall see. Try and keep this in the frame for you. It's not the most even in the world, but I'm not going for even. This will be dipped in beeswax when I get it done. So, alright, so what we're going to do is try and keep this halfway centered on here. Something like this. I got off center there, but that's alright. I pulled it back up. And I even actually made it long enough it overlaps, so that's good. Alright. We're halfway there. Let me set that down. We don't need the tape any longer. So I'll set the tape aside and grab my wire. So this is 36 gauge wire. I measured the wire with some digital calipers to make sure that I had the right diameter. This is actually polyurethane enamel copper wire. If you want to get right down to it, technically you wouldn't have to use insulator because it's coated. I'll have to burn the coating off before I can solder it. Hardest part's getting the wire started. But you can see how fine that wire is. That is small wire. It has a little bit of a kink in it right there, so I'm not going to start right at the end where I pulled it off. I'm going to cut that off so that we don't have that kink. Alright. Now the critical thing about this is you do have to wrap it in the right direction, and I had photographed and made sure that I knew which way was the correct direction. So I'm going to leave myself enough extra that I can feed it through the hole properly. So I'm just going to go ahead and start it right here, and I think I'm going to wrap this around and get center where you can see what I'm doing. Get me some more wire off of here. See if I can get this to wrap around without breaking it around my little tab that I made there. There we go. So you can see it's wrapped around that tab right there. So that'll kind of hold that more firmly in place while I do this. So now I've got to start my wrap. And I'm going to take this off camera because I really need to do it under my magnifier so I can make sure I get the wrap correct. But that's the way I'm going to do it. As you can see, I'm kind of going to go around there. I got to go around it just 4 times, luckily. But I do have to get it where I can see it. So I'm going to put it under the magnifier. I'll be right back. So I got 4 wraps of the 36 gauge down there on the tape. It's holding on nicely. I was going to go in this hole here. I decided to go, and I'd done that, I would have wrapped it around twice, but I decided to go in this hole instead. So I just kind of angle it over there. It's not going to short against this because this is coated wire, but I still like to have the insulator on there anyway. Up here I did wrap it around. and we'll pull that a little bit more taut when I get ready to do this. But what I have to do is I have to solder. I have to burn the polyurethane off of it, and then I have to solder, wrap this wire around here, solder it on. Here's the bottom one, and I have to wrap it around here and solder it on. So that's the next step. So I'll do that off camera. Okay, I'm back. So to recap, I put the new insulator on there, used some two-sided tape to do that. Put a half a strip of two-sided tape on top of the insulator. I wrapped to keep it secure there. I put it under to keep it secure here, ran it through here, brought it up, soldered to that terminal. I'm sorry, soldered to that terminal, soldered to that terminal, checked my resistance, make sure I didn't have an open, and now I am planning on dipping it in beeswax. I actually have a resistor I want to put in here as well, so I may go ahead and put that resistor in there first, because it doesn't really matter, because I'm not planning on dipping the beeswax all the way up to here. So when I see beeswax, what I'm talking about, I got this jar here. I've had some melted in it before, but it's not deep enough to dip that in, so I'm going to melt some more in it. I actually obtained this beeswax local here from a lady that has honey, and she sells honey. And she was at a little craft show one day, and I saw she had a couple slabs of wax. And I said, "Is that beeswax from your bees?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, how much you want for it?" And it was like, I think $8 for this big chunk that I'll probably never use up. And I said, "Well, I'll take that." She goes, "Well, what do you use it for?" And I told her, I use it for old electronics, to seal things up, to make new capacitors and things such as that look like old. And she's like, "My husband, when I packed it up," she says, "he was like, 'Why are you taking that? Nobody's going to buy beeswax.'" Well, I said, "I did." So, a little funny story. So anyway, I'm going to go see if I can melt this. I usually do it, the last time I did it, I did it on the stove and with some water, and it took forever. I'm going to go try something in the microwave. Wish me luck, I don't blow this thing apart or something, but I'm going to go try it in the microwave, see what happens. Okay, I'm back. The microwave actually worked quite well. It took about 4.5 minutes at 60% power. I was afraid of putting it any higher than I was afraid I'd blow it up or something. So, as you can see, it's completely melted. Very hot. And now I'm looking for my pliers, which, there they are. So I can pick this thing up and dip it a couple times. We will see if I can get this, keep it on screen where you can see it. I hope I got it on screen where you can see it. Very simply, I'm just going to dip it down inside there. Whoa! And that puts a nice coating of wax over everything and will seal it. One dip is probably sufficient, but you know what? I'm going to dip the bottom one more time. If I can, I need to set this down so I can get a better dip. What I probably should have done was, well, that didn't work well, did it? What I probably should have done was get the mess off the bottom over there. Now let's try it again. One more time. There we go. That should be fine. And I'll just hold that here for a minute until it starts to solidify. And that'll keep everything set in place and protected. fact, I think I'm just going to set it right here. And that's that. And now I got a nice thing of melted beeswax. I should have had some caps to restuff. But that's how I do that. And all I got left to do once that sets up is put the resistor in it, and that one is about done. Okay, this is done. All finished. It's all coated with the beeswax. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. You see the beeswax inside there. Pretty happy. It turned out pretty good. I got a new 4700 ohm resistor down inside there. You may or may not be able to see the little blue in there. Got this cap back in there. This cap's there. So it's finished. Hopefully it's going to work out okay. So, and the beeswax, as you can see, is not so thick that it's like super thick, but it is actually covering everything, and it's got everything nicely glued together. So that's that.